In this section, we're going to look at how to browse and navigate through the connections we've made. So far we've made connections to Office 365 and also SharePoint on-premises. For this example, I've also made a management connection to Office 365 and collected some statistical data and made a backup. So we'll look at how to browse through those sections. How to create a backup, how to make the management connection, and how to connect to and collect statistical data will be dealt with individually in a separate video, but these connections have been established just so there's some context in this video. So first, let's look at how to browse through our Office 365 tenant connection. So it sits over here in the Navigator under the heading we've given it, Office 365 tenant. If I browse down into that, we can see we have the site collections. If I want to load one of those, I can double click on it and it will prompt me to load. I've loaded this one already, the Meta one. I can browse down into that, into the subsites, and look at perhaps into this site called Finance. Double click on a library and that will load the contents. So there are the documents within that library. So if I want to load a site collection or subsite that hasn't been loaded already, I can double click on it and it will prompt me saying here, this site has not been loaded from SharePoint. Do you want to load it? I can click OK or cancel. So let's browse up to the connection I made to an individual Office 365 site. So that's here under the Meta 1 site connection. So if I browse down into that, you see it's just made it for this one site collection. And from there, I can drill down and look into the libraries and lists, or as before, I can load subsites by double clicking them and it will prompt me to load those. So next, let's look at the on-premises farm connection we created. So there it is, a wingtip farm connection. Again, if I browse down into that, I can browse down and view the site collections, libraries, lists, and subsites. And as before, if I double click on one of these sections, it will prompt me to load it. And finally, let's look at the individual on-premises site collection I made. So if I drill down into it here, the Wingtip intranet site connection, you see it's connected to that individual site. And as before, I can double click on libraries to load the contents of those, or double click to load any subsites as required. So next, let's look at the management connection. Now, as I say, I will show you how to make this connection in a subsequent video, but this video is just about how to browse the contents within it. So it sits here with this different logo with these sections joined together to show you it's slightly different. And within there, we've got options for Office 365 users, licenses, OneDrive, and so on. So if I double click on a section, it will load. Like for example here, these are the Office 365 licenses. So it shows a list of the users in the tenant and the licenses they've been assigned. If I double click on users, it will just show me a list of users and their status and so on. Next, let's look at browsing a statistical connection. So on the left here, you see I've got Meta 1 site statistics. So I've run a statistical data report for the Meta 1 site collection, and it gathers it in this sort of project like this, and I can expand that out. So if I double click on Meta 1, it will show me the statistics for that site and subsites. And from there, I can browse using this section here, the radio buttons, to view various different things, such as the user activity report. If I expand out subsites here, I can drill down and load the statistics for a specific subsite. So if, for example, I double click on the finance site here, this will show me the statistics for that subsite only. Similarly for the OneDrive, so I've run a statistical data report across 24 OneDrives. If I double click on the 24 OneDrives, it shows me the statistics for all of those OneDrives and things like the user activity. And as before, I can draw down into a specific OneDrive, such as Megan Bowen, and it will show me the statistics for that OneDrive only. So for example, I jump down to user activity. That's the user activity for Megan's OneDrive. So I think it's only herself that's been using that. Finally, the backups. If I click on the backup tab, you see we've got an additional navigator on the left now called the backup navigator, and all backups that have been run display in this view, and I can drill down into that. So it shows me that this particular backup, which was for the finance site, ran today at 2:08 p.m. and it was a full backup. And if I expand it out, we can see the sites and subsites within there. and the libraries and lists. And if I double click on a library, it shows me the contents of that. And from there, I can start taking actions like restoring and so on. So that is how to browse and navigate through the various connections, both Office 365, SharePoint on-premises, the management element of Office 365, statistical data, and also browsing through a backup.